Hi guys, welcome to Origin. There's been a lot of stuff in the past few months on YouTube about social justice. There's a Tumblr social justice community. This was the one that put out those pictures of Laci's house. And there's also this whole Atheism Plus thing. Now, I've made my opinion clear on Atheism Plus. I don't want to talk about that because, well, I'd just be talking about stuff that tons of other people have already talked about, and I've already said I don't want to do that. But I have a larger point to make in this video, and it gets to the heart of exactly what social justice should mean, and also what words like racism and homophobia and transphobia and stuff like that should mean. In principle, I think the vast majority of us agree with the general idea that we shouldn't discriminate against people based on their race, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, whether they're disabled or, able-bodied. But I've got the impression from what I've seen that Tumblr and Atheism Plus seem to be more concerned about the words that are used rather than what I feel is more important, the intentions behind the words. And I've made my feelings about these kind of words known in previous videos, for example when I talked about what Fatbased was doing. And the whole reason that Laci got in trouble with Tumblr was because, well, the Tumblr social justice community is because she used the T word associated with transgender people. And apparently giving the most crystal clear apology and admission of being wrong wasn't enough for them. Now, my position on these powerful words, I just want to restate it. No single word should ever have that kind of power, and if it ever gets it, it should be reclaimed by the group that it's being used to insult. And the argument's been made that the words should retain their power because then they serve as an example of the kind of damage that the words and intentions behind them can do to people. My question to anyone who would make that argument is, why aren't the actions, of which there are so many, enough to make that point? How do centuries of slavery and lynching and viewing an entire group of people as subhuman compare to one word beginning with N? Language is a function of time, and entire languages can come and go within a few centuries. So it doesn't make any sense to me to put all of this time and energy into these words. To paraphrase the black, gay, British comedian Stephen K. Amos, political correctness is fine if it means thinking before you speak, but it can go too far. A blackboard is a blackboard. If these social justice communities, such as the one on Tumblr and Atheism Plus, focused on, political advocacy of civil rights, trying to get gay marriage legalized, focusing on hate crime laws, stuff like that, I wouldn't have any problem with them. In fact, I'd probably completely agree with them. But it's going on these silly witch hunts over people who use these forbidden words. And to segue onto the next criticism of these communities, also this idea of privilege. It's a joke how the term privilege is being used in these two communities. Basically, if you're white, straight, male, cisgender, you are privileged, and in these communities your opinion is pretty much worthless. Not to mention any attempt to challenge their use of the term privilege results in you being told that you don't understand how they're using it, and then being banned or just blocked. Now, it strikes me that the purpose of a movement is for it to grow, for it to gain acceptance among the wider public. I don't see how you could possibly do that when you dismiss the majority groups, the groups which you need to gain acceptance among if you want a chance in hell of ever getting your message across. Just dismissing them as being privileged. So, if I had any say in any kind of social justice movement, what I would do is welcome everyone to voice their opinion, for, to have a free forum, no excluding people who think differently, none of this privilege crap, actually having freedom of thought and expression. And I would put far more time and energy on hate crime legislation and perhaps most importantly of all at the moment, civil rights issues like gay marriage and stuff like that, which are still under attack today and shouldn't be an issue at all. Now the next part, what I say could prove controversial. I'm not saying I necessarily believe this, but think of it as a kind of thought experiment, something to think about. One thing that's never sat very well with me is, well, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between how racism and homophobia are perceived as attitudes, not very well at all, and how bad the actual racism and homophobia actually is. Now before I lose you, please hear me out. This shouldn't come across as far right or anything like this if I explain it properly. If you get angry at someone for any reason, a lot of people use, well, appearance-based insults. And while it would be frowned upon to call someone fat or ugly or something like that, you can, generally speaking, get away with it in the sense that you're not made into a pariah for doing it. And I don't see these kind of insults as acceptable. But if in the exact same scenario you use, for example, not even any of the forbidden words, just the word black or white or something like that, then you've taken it into the area of race, and you could very easily be classified as a racist. So there's a double standard. One seen as bad, definitely bad, there's no question about that, but the other one seen as completely unforgivable. Now, I wouldn't personally see such a remark as racism, just a race-based remark made in the heat of passion. But whether we agree or disagree, we still have the problem of this disconnect. Now again, this is something I'm struggling with. It's an opinion in progress, precisely because it's so controversial. I've been trying to bridge this disconnect, and the only idea I've come up with, which I've come to the conclusion doesn't work, is this. Race, sexual orientation, those are things that can't be changed, or at least not without drastic measures. We're talking the kind of surgery that just might kill you, etc. Whereas obesity is something that can be changed. And I've heard a lot of people defend using fat-based insults, saying that they're concerned about the person's health. Now, given the way that these insults are generally used, I tend to doubt that. But anyway, that doesn't add up to me, because, well, what about if someone's called ugly? I mean, that's also something that can't be changed about themselves, but it's not viewed as being as bad as race-based insults. So if the ability to change it makes the moral difference here, well, that principle isn't being applied consistently. And as for the health argument, well, most of the people that you're criticizing have already accepted who they are. And they've said that they're fine with it, they're prepared to accept the consequences of whatever happens. So in that sense, you're just telling them stuff you already know and making them feel bad for something that they don't feel they should feel bad about. So that's my dilemma. An objective, rational look at the situation has led me to this position, which I think, well, I say think, I'm in pretty much no doubt will be perceived as extremely controversial. But what do you guys think? Have I missed something? Have I glazed over something really obvious? Or might I just be onto something? Out of all the videos I've ever made, this one more than any other is the one that I would like some input on, just because of what I've just said. Thank you for watching, goodbye.